At my dad's retirement party, my mother stopped the photographer, pointed at my wife, and said, "Can we get one with just the real family? Blood relatives only." My wife had spent 2 weekends building Dad's slideshow and most of that morning fixing problems with the caterer. She still gave a small smile and stepped away like she was trying to make the moment easier for everyone else. I did not argue. I handed my drink to my sister, walked out of the group, and stood beside my wife. Behind us, my mother said, "Aaron, don't make this into something." I looked back at her and said, "I'm not. Take the picture you asked for." The photographer was a friend of my parents, not a professional, and he looked like he wanted the floor to open under him. My dad stared at the carpet. My sister, Brooke, held my drink with both hands and said nothing. My mother made a frustrated sound, the kind she used when a cashier took too long or someone put serving spoons in the wrong drawer. "Fine," she said. Everyone smiled. So they took the picture without us. My wife, Elise, kept her face calm until the flash went off. Then she asked if I wanted to go outside for a minute. We walked through the side door of the banquet room and stood near the loading area behind the restaurant. It was not private. Employees kept passing with boxes, and every time the door opened, we could hear people inside laughing at something from the slideshow Elise had made. I said, "I'm sorry." She nodded, but she did not say it was okay. That mattered, because Elise usually tried to make things okay before I had even admitted they were wrong. I started to say that my mother probably meant she wanted one picture with just her children and my dad's siblings. Even as the words came out, I knew they were weak. Elise looked at me and said, "She said blood relatives. She did not say children. She did not say siblings." She looked directly at me. I know. And she was happy for me to be family when the caterer lost the dessert order. That landed harder than anything she could have yelled. Elise had spent most of the morning on the phone because my mother had ordered a sheet cake for more people than the restaurant could store. When the bakery delivered it early, the restaurant manager refused to take responsibility for it. Elise found space at a nearby grocery store, arranged a later pickup, and drove there herself in her dress. She had also built my dad's retirement slideshow from old photographs my mother had kept in 3 different boxes. She cleaned up the scans, called 2 of his former coworkers, and made sure the music was something he actually liked. None of that made her entitled to a place in every photograph, but asking her to do family work and then publicly defining her as not family was different. I told her we could leave. She shook her head. "This is your dad's party. I don't want our exit to become the story." That was Elise. Even hurt, she was thinking about my father. We went back inside. We stayed through his speech. We clapped when his old supervisor gave him a watch. Elise helped an older aunt find her coat. I did not make a scene, and my mother acted as if nothing had happened. Near the end of the night, she walked over while I was stacking gift bags and said, "You embarrassed me." I asked, "How?" "You made it look like I was excluding Elise." I waited because I thought she might hear herself. She did not. She added, "Every family takes different combinations of pictures. I wanted one with the people who have known your father his whole life." Elise had been married to me for 6 years. My youngest cousin in that picture was 19. I said, "Then you should have said that." My mother folded her arms. "This is exactly why I did not want to bring it up in front of everyone. You turn one small request into a moral issue." I almost apologized. That is the part I am least proud of. For years, when my mother said something sharp, I had trained myself to solve the discomfort instead of asking who created it. I would smooth things over, change the subject, or do one more favor so no one had to sit with an ugly moment. That night I caught myself before the apology came out. I said, "We're going home." My dad walked us to the parking lot. He hugged Elise, thanked her for the slideshow, and told her it was the best part of the party. He did not mention the photograph. On the drive home, Elise was quiet. About halfway there, she said, "I appreciate that you stepped out. I should have said more." "No, not there." She looked out the window for a few seconds before continuing. But I need you to understand that this was not random. Your mom sees me as close enough to help and distant enough to remove. I wanted to tell her that my mother loved her in her own way. I wanted to list the birthday gifts, the invitations, and the times she had called Elise for advice. Then I realized every example I was about to use involved my mother wanting something from her. I did not sleep much that night. The next morning, my mother posted pictures from the party. The blood family photo was first. Her caption said, "Everything begins and ends with family." There were other pictures where Elise appeared in the background, but none where she was standing beside me. My phone started vibrating before breakfast. An aunt sent me a heart. One cousin asked if Elise had left early. Brooke texted privately and said, "Mom could have handled that better, but walking out of the photo made it bigger." I asked her, "Would you have stayed if Mom told your husband he was not real family?" She did not answer for several hours. When she finally did, she wrote, "That is not exactly what she said." It was exactly what she had said. I did not respond. For the next week, I expected my mother to call Elise. She never did. My dad sent a text thanking both of us again for the party, but he also avoided the subject. I made my own mistake during that week. I kept telling Elise that my mother might need time because apologizing was hard for her. After the third time, Elise said, "You're still managing her feelings." She was right. I had been managing my mother's feelings for most of my adult life, and event planning was just the most visible version of it. It started after I moved back to our area in my late 20s. I was good at logistics, and my mother was good at having a vision 5 times larger than her patients. I booked restaurants, compared prices, tracked who was bringing what, picked up relatives from the airport, and cleaned up after everyone left. When Elise and I got married, she started helping because she loved me, and because she was better than I was at remembering the human details. She knew which cousin could not eat dairy, which aunt needed a chair with arms, and which family arguments should not be seated beside each other. My mother called us the organized ones. What she meant was that we would handle the work she did not want to do. About 3 weeks after the retirement party, she sent me a message with the subject line, "Thanksgiving." It was not a question. She had written a guest count, a menu, and a list of things that needed to happen. She wanted me to reserve the neighborhood clubhouse, confirm the rental tables, organize rides for 2 older relatives, collect everyone's food restrictions, and make a schedule for the kitchen. At the bottom, she wrote, "Elise can do the place cards again. Last year's were lovely." I read the message twice. Then I showed it to Elise. She laughed once, but there was no humor in it. She did not even ask if I'm coming. That was true. My mother had assigned her a job without actually inviting her. My first instinct was to write a long reply explaining every reason this was hurtful. I drafted almost a full page. I mentioned the photo, the slideshow, the cake, past holidays, and the fact that Elise had never received an apology. Then I deleted it. A long explanation would only give my mother 10 separate sentences to argue with. I wrote, "Elise and I will not be organizing Thanksgiving this year. Let us know the time and location once you decide what you're doing." She called within 2 minutes. "What does that mean?" She asked, "It means we are not planning it. You always plan Thanksgiving." "I know. Are you seriously holding Dad's retirement picture over the whole family?" "No, I'm stepping back from a job I never agreed to have forever." She was silent long enough that I could hear dishes being moved in her kitchen. Then she said, "Families help each other." I said, "Elise helped you all day at Dad's party. You still told her she was not part of the family." "I did not say that." "You said the picture was for blood relatives only. That is not the same thing. It felt the same to her." My mother lowered her voice. "So this is coming from Elise." There it was. In her mind, I could not set a boundary unless my wife had put it in my mouth. I said, "No, this is coming from me." She ended the call by saying, "Your father is going to be very disappointed." For a few hours, I felt sick. Not guilty exactly. More like I had broken a rule I had followed so long that my body still expected punishment. That evening, my dad called. He started by asking about work. Then he told me the lawn was finally recovering from the summer heat. I waited. Eventually he said, "Your mom says you are not helping with Thanksgiving." "That's right," he sighed. "You know she gets overwhelmed." "I know, and you're good at this stuff." "I know that too." He asked if I could just reserve the clubhouse because the deadline was coming up. I nearly said yes. It was one phone call, 10 minutes, maybe 15. I told myself I could do that one task without taking everything back. Then I remembered how every holiday had started. One small favor became the first item on a list no one else could see. I said, "No, someone else can call." My dad was quiet. Then he said I should have spoken up at the party. It was not a full apology, but it was the first honest sentence anyone in my family had offered. I said, "Yes, you should have." He did not argue. Thanksgiving planning moved to the family group chat, where I learned just how much invisible work Elise and I had been doing. Brooke volunteered to find a location, then discovered the clubhouse had already been booked. My mother suggested her house, but she did not have enough chairs and did not want people using the upstairs bathroom. One cousin offered a church hall, then backed out when he learned someone needed to meet the custodian and clean afterward. Every few days, someone tagged me with a question. Did I still have last year's shopping list? What time had I usually put the turkey in? Which rental company did we use? I answered simple questions when I knew the answer. I did not make calls, build schedules, or take ownership. That distinction made my mother furious. She called it passive-aggressive. Brooke said I was proving a point at everyone else's expense. An aunt told me privately that she understood, but she also hoped I would reconsider because my mother had always been particular. Elise's brother, when he heard about it, wanted us to skip the whole thing. Elise did not. "I'm not asking you to cut off your family," she said. "I'm asking not to be used by people who can remove me when it suits them." So we went to Thanksgiving as guests. My mother eventually held it at her house with fewer people. She ordered most of the food from a grocery store. Brooke brought folding chairs from work. My dad handled rides for the older relatives and forgot one pickup until an hour before dinner. Nothing disastrous happened. That was important. The turkey was dry. The mashed potatoes arrived cold. Two relatives sat in the living room with plates on their knees. The world did not end. For the first time in years, Elise and I arrived with one pie and no tote bags full of extension cords, serving utensils, printed schedules, or emergency supplies. My mother met us at the door and immediately said, "Can you move the card table into the dining room?" I said, "Sure." I moved the table because I was a guest helping with one task, not the person responsible for the whole day. 10 minutes later, she asked Elise to redo the place settings because they looked uneven. Elise said, "I think they look fine." My mother stared at her. Then she fixed them herself. Dinner was tense at first, but it slowly became ordinary. People talked about work, football, and my father's new habit of waking up at 5 even though he was retired. No one confronted anyone. No one gave a speech. After dessert, one of my cousins said, "We should get a picture." My mother started arranging people in front of the fireplace. I watched her look at Elise and hesitate. Then she said, "Spouses too." It was not an apology. It felt more like a correction she hoped would erase the earlier problem without requiring her to name it. Elise joined the picture anyway. On the drive home, I asked how she felt. She said, "Better than last time, not fixed." That was exactly right. Christmas was the real test. My mother had always treated December like a small military campaign. There was a cookie exchange, a family dinner, gifts for the children, a morning brunch, and a separate visit for relatives who could not attend the main event. Usually, I made the calendar. Elise tracked the gifts. We spent most of the month preventing problems other people never knew existed. In early December, my mother sent a message asking when I would circulate the schedule. I replied, "I'm not making one this year." She called my dad instead of me. He called Brooke. Brooke called me. She said, "Mom is crying." I said, "I'm sorry she's upset. You know this matters to her." It mattered to Elise to be treated like family. Brooke said, "Why does everything have to come back to that picture?" I thought about it before answering. It doesn't. The picture just made me notice the arrangement. We did the work, Mom took the credit, and Elise was still optional. Brooke was quiet. Then she surprised me. She said, "I did not know Elise made Dad's slideshow. Mom asked her to. I thought Mom did it. So did most people." That conversation did not turn Brooke into an ally overnight. She still believed I could have handled things more gently, but she stopped telling me to fix Christmas. The family ended up choosing one dinner instead of 4 separate events. Brooke organized a gift exchange. My dad ordered food. My mother complained that no one cared about tradition, but she attended. Elise and I spent Christmas morning at home for the first time since we got married. We made pancakes, called her parents, and took a walk before going to the family dinner. I did not realize how much resentment I had attached to holidays until I experienced one that did not begin with a checklist. At dinner, my mother was polite to Elise. Too polite, almost. She praised the pie we brought 3 times and asked if we needed anything every few minutes, but she did not apologize. For several months, our relationship settled into something cooler and more honest. I still called my parents. I helped my dad replace a broken shelf in the garage. Elise and I invited them to dinner twice. What I stopped doing was anticipating every need before it was spoken. When my mother hinted that someone should organize my father's birthday, I asked what she had in mind. When she told me, I said it sounded nice. I did not volunteer. She eventually planned a simple lunch at a local restaurant. It was smaller than what I would have arranged. It was also completely fine. After lunch, my dad asked the server to take a picture of all of us. My mother stood beside him and started directing everyone into place. For 1 second, Elise stayed near the edge, like her body remembered what had happened before her mind could stop it. My mother noticed. She moved over and said, "Elise, come stand by Aaron." Elise did. The server took 2 pictures. In the first, my father's eyes were closed. In the second, my mother was looking away. Neither was perfect. That felt appropriate. We have not returned to how things were before the retirement party. My mother still says the original comment was misunderstood. Brooke still thinks I let the conflict go on longer than necessary. My dad has apologized once, quietly, for staying silent, but I do not know if he would act differently in the same moment. Elise is in the family pictures now. And when a holiday comes around, we wait to be invited instead of assuming responsibility for making it happen. Being included did not require us to take the old job back.